Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels. My name is Jay Shalansky and joining me is John Bushman.
Hello.
It's weird not having three people on the Scoundrels, but here we are. Nothing we could do.
We count as three people.
Yeah. You have multiple personalities, right? So that'll cover us. For those of you that maybe forgot, Kyle is out on paternity leave. He had a beautiful baby boy, so they're excited and doing parenting stuff. So we were going to rotate through. We had somebody else that was going to join us this week, but they had some parenting issues themselves and they had to drop out last minute.
Parents.
So here we are. It's me and Mr. Bushfacts himself coming at you. So on today's episode with John here, we're gonna dive into the Elo rankings and how they work. And I know John kind of wants to perhaps unveil a new way he's gonna work on the Elo rankings. We're also gonna go over SOS and MOV and what that means, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about John's version of MOV, which is called Battle Points, which is in
Tabletop TO.
Yeah, Tabletop TO. And so let's talk first off. Let's do some housekeeping. So as always, if you like the content here on our podcast or on our blog, think about supporting us on Patreon. Just a couple bucks here and there, and we pay the staff, and so that helps us pay the staff and keep them happy and writing and recording podcasts and all that stuff. And then outside of that, if you're interested in our narrative campaign, Stormtide, we're working on box 5 now. It's going to be shipped out in the next, I think it's probably going to be after Christmas that we'll end up shipping it just because of the holiday shenanigans. So Stormtide box 5 is coming out. If you haven't heard, we have monsters now. So there's actual monsters running amok in Stormtide. And so that's been interesting, and people seem to be enjoying that, and so that's been fun to work on. So if you're interested in Stormtide, there's a couple of different ways you could get it. You could start your monthly subscription. There's a catch-up feature where you pay for all the boxes we've released so far and then start the monthly subscription. Or if you wanted, you could go to the Fifth Trooper website and just get the first quarter, which is the first 3 boxes with all the minis that we've put out. And those are 3 different ways you can join and kind of get in on the action. And, I'm really excited for some of the stuff that's coming out. I've got big plans for Stormtide in the future here, and, it's going to be fun. So,
yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah. And, usually, John, we let our guests plug stuff, but since you're kind of with us, you can go to thefifthtrooper.com.
I'd like to plug Critical X, if you could find it out there. There are still 35 great episodes somewhere hidden in the interwebs.
Didn't I do an intro for you guys once for that?
Oh, yeah. We got a Fifth Trooper intro in there, too. We're legit. We were legit.
Yep. One of the many podcasts. There was a while there where I think there was a good 20, maybe more podcasts.
I think there's more now.
Yeah.
I feel like there's more now.
Maybe I haven't been paying that much attention.
Yeah. I still don't pay attention. But
we've got 3, including the one we have on Patreon, and that's enough for me. I can't even focus on anybody else's podcast. Especially when they're putting out junk content like Stabcast. Just kidding. We love Stabcast. That's just, they'll like that. Anytime their name gets mentioned, no matter what you said before or after it, they're happy. So
any publicity is good publicity.
So anyways, let's. John, I'll leave it up to you. What do you want tackled first?
Let's go over Elo first while it's fresh in my mind.
Okay. So basically, for everyone who may be new, to you. We posted something recently about the Elo rankings being up, and this is basically John's going to explain the technical side of it, but basically it's a ranking system for Legion players. So if you played at any major tournament, what is it, 20 or more?
20 or more is the soft cap I have.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's first, like, if it's some special event that was invite only, for example, Worlds 2 years ago, or whenever we actually had Worlds, was only 8 players, that obviously got counted.
Yeah.
The idea is to make sure that they're competitive only events, and having 20 plus people tends to not guarantee it, but helps ensure it.
Yeah, and so if you are at an event that's 20 plus, you can where are we submitting events now? We're
You don't
not.
submit them. I
Oh,
go through
you go in.
Tabletop TO.
Yep.
And fairly regular, at least once a month, I will go through Tabletop TO because all those events are public,
Mhm.
and I will scrape the matches straight from that.
Perfect.
If your tournament is not using Tabletop TO, and if you don't see your tournament on the list, because there is a list on the website now of matches or of tournaments that are included. If your tournament's not on there and you feel that it should be, then one, it's probably not in Tabletop TO. So two, if you have access to that data from
Mhm.
some other software or something, then you can reach out to me on whatever my email is, jbushman@thefifthtrooper.com. It's on the website.
That
It's
sounds right.
something Bushman, you know.
Yeah, I think it might be Jay Bush.
Yeah.
We're both looking it up right now. But yeah, so we'll get that email in a second here. But yeah, you can email that to John and he will.
It is jbushman@thefifthtrooper.com.
And so yeah, okay. So kind of explain let's start at the beginning, John. What was the thought behind the Elo rankings? First off, what does ELO stand for?
Oh, it's not. I mean, I'm probably going to butcher this right now. I don't believe it stands for anything. I think it's a guy's name.
Oh,
Elo rating system, but it was, yeah, it's a dude's last name, Arpad Elo, a
all right.
Hungarian American physics professor.
Okay.
They started using it for chess.
All right.
For games where there's a clear winner, clear loser. You can, and not really like degrees of winning. There have been adaptations so you can do like partial wins and all that, but we're not getting into that. Elo is a system though that I know a lot. I know it's hard to implement, and so a lot of other games like 40K or X-Wing that want to have worldwide ranking systems, they'll do other type of systems where you go to these big tournaments, these big events, and based on your placing in those tournaments, like you get a certain number of points, and that determines where you stand. But that's hugely biased because one, like you have no way of knowing the quality of that tournament.
Right.
It's similar to strength of schedule that we're going to talk about later, but the quality of your like you may have gotten first place on a fluke. Like you don't play against everyone in a tournament. You play against a small handful of people,
right?
And it's luck of the draw who you play against.
Yeah, like for example, I've been to a number of tournaments where both Kyle, Mike, and David have been, and I literally have never played that at a tournament. And that's how it works, right? And then sometimes like or Luke Cook, for instance, right? Like Luke Cook and I play in a lot of local tournaments, and there was a tournament recently where we never even I think we had about 20 players, and we didn't even play each other. Like right. It didn't even happen. So yeah, that's an example.
So both extremes can happen. You could either get paired against a lot of skilled players and end up very low placing, or you could get matched against unskilled players and get extremely high placing. And it's just completely random. So what Elo does is it takes some calibration. It takes a certain number of games to get started, which is why I don't put anyone's name on the table until they have at least 10 games that I've recorded. But after then, and that's just an arbitrary number, I just chose it. But after then, it takes each time you play a game, it looks at that opponent. It looks at your opponent's Elo rating at that time. And if they were a more skilled player than you and you beat them, then you're gonna get that. Like, that's an upset. Like, that was an unlikely outcome. So you're gonna get more points than usual, and he's gonna lose more points than usual. And that's kind of the balance. So if you lose to someone though that's very skilled and very highly rated, then it's not gonna affect your Elo a lot, because that's what was expected to happen.
Right. And then it balances itself out, because if you are just starting, you're low ranked, depending on how you've been doing. And then if you've beat a higher ranked player and you continue to be higher ranked players, well, then it even balances itself out so that you become a higher ranked player. So I know, because just for some reason, the phrasing of that, I feel like somebody would be like, why is that an unlikely outcome, John? And so, but it's just based on math, not on actual, right? It's just based on the fact that maybe you've only had 10 tournaments, and like myself, and maybe you've only played one or two like mid-range players, and sure, you beat them, but like, you haven't really played anyone skilled to like really raise you up on that ranking system. And so it doesn't say whether or not you're good at that point. Once you play those players, that's when it tells you whether or not you're good.
Right. And it will, like, ideally, just like in chess, you will, after enough games, you will find what your actual rating is. You'll stop going up a ton and you'll stop going down. Like, you'll kind of just fluctuate around the same number, and that's supposed to represent your skill level, and thus your ranking.
Interesting. So you've been doing this for a number of years now.
Over just about 2 years, I think.
Yeah. So that's a number. That's
That
2.
is.
Yeah. So what is changing between what you were doing and what you want to do now?
Yeah, so we are 2 years ago when I first started, I had like a pool of 2,000 matches, which was a lot, but not a ton. And we're almost up to 6,000 matches now, worldwide.
Wow.
Which is starting to get into like significant numbers here. And so we wanted to make a couple of changes. Legion has also been out for 3.5 years. Or 4.5 years.
About 3.5. Yeah.
3.5.
Maybe 4, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so we've got a couple of situations that can be corrected in this system. The first one being players that haven't played in a long time, but they still hold a top 20, top 50 spot in the Elo ranking, because they haven't played, and so they haven't lost any, haven't gained any.
Right.
They just did really well for the first 10, 12 matches, and that was it. They're done. So what we're going to start doing is we're going to introduce a decay. And this is going to be retroactive. It's going to hit everyone equally. But this decay, I think I'm still deciding on a number, but it will be after about 6 months of inactivity, of not having any games that I've recorded, then we'll drop your Elo ranking about 10 points every 3 months.
Okay.
Now those 10 points, or half of those 10 points rather, are going to go into a pool, and they'll be your bonus pool. And this bonus pool, when you do finally come back and play a game, say you win 12 points and there's 20 in your bonus pool, you will double that 12 points. You'll get 24 points, and you'll keep doubling your wins until the bonus pool is out. So you only permanently lose half of this decay. And it gives you a way to catch back up quickly, but it gives a way to filter out players that have retired.
Right. Right. So yeah,
Yeah.
right. So it's fair. So for people who are just done with the game, instead of their name continually
It'll go
popping
away.
up, right, they'll go away eventually. But then if someone was just on a hiatus for whatever reason, and then they come back in, they have a way to get back to the top without,
Yeah.
you know.
And these are not huge numbers. That's like 10 points is like the amount that's exchanged in a single game.
Mm.
So losing 10 points every 3 months, like it's not going to be a big impact, but it will be something. So these numbers won't be static, and it will lower everyone's points a little bit, which has the added benefit of allowing newer players to catch up quicker
Yeah.
because there won't be such a huge spread.
Right. Because if for anyone who's been in this as long as we have, there's for sure a few names I saw just in I think it was the top 25 where I'm like, I don't think they play anymore. Like, you know what I
Yep.
mean? So you could never beat them because they don't play. So you would never be able to get those points. Where someone like Kyle, who's near the top, he plays all the time. So your option to play Kyle and try to beat him is, I mean, Kyle's a really good player, so it's not great, but
Yeah.
it's better than them not playing at all.
He's earning it.
Yeah,
He's
right.
actively earning that
Yeah,
score.
yeah. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. And if you haven't heard or haven't seen the Elo, we've got them up on the website. I don't think I put it up on the homepage yet, so I'm gonna.
It is
Oh, is
Legion
it? Yep.
Tools. It's under Legion Tools.
Oh yeah. So Legion Tools and Star Wars Legion Elo rankings, and you can see all the rankings. How many do you go to on that, John?
I don't care how many. Whoever, it's
I
up
think
to
it goes to
315 right
yeah,
now.
315. Yeah.
And that's just everyone that has at least 10 games.
Yep.
So that list will keep growing. Also, if you do, I have a little blurb there at the top. If you do not want your name up there, you can email me again at jbushman@thefifthtrooper.com to either one, remove your entry entirely, or you could add a pseudonym in there instead. You just gotta let me know.
Yep. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. So if you want to see those, you could go to thefifthtrooper.com, Legion Tools, and check out the Elo rankings. So that's neat. What? Anything else? Anything else we need to know
There
about?
is one other big change.
Okay.
So how Elo works is it relies on for it to have any significance at all. You have to have matches between players. You have to have this degree of connectedness. Like you don't have to play against everyone for your score to be relevant, but you have to play against someone who's played against someone who's played against someone else.
Right.
There has to be a degree of connectivity. So when I run this through an algorithm and I look at all the players and all the matches that they've played against the other players, there are very distinct regions that pop up. There are regions where this bubble of players has not played a single game against this bubble of players. And that means that they're within that bubble, their Elo spread may go up to 1,500, but then a 1,500 from their bubble could play against, an 1,100 from another bubble and just get annihilated.
Yeah.
Because those rankings don't mean the same thing. They're only relevant in so much as they're connected.
Yep.
So what I'm still defining exactly what those regions are going to be, but I'm going to make multiple regions. Not everyone will be on the same Elo table. It's primarily looking like it's going to be a North America, Europe, and what do we say? Australia and subsidiaries.
Yeah, they usually call that Asia Pacific.
Asia Pacific. There we go. Those are looking like the three regions I'm going to do. I'm still drawing that line. And then for any matches that say you get from traveling across regions, it will give you a second Elo rating. So I could have a North America Elo rating and a European Elo rating if you get at least 10 games in each. So pretty hard.
Now, would Invader League count in that? No.
No. Invader League is a different game, or TTS is a different
Understood.
game entirely.
Yep.
Comparing it to Legion in real life, I don't think is fair.
Yeah, I kind of like that, and I like the idea of that. So, yeah. So it goes so far. Let's say somebody from Europe was to come to Gen Con or Adepticon, one of the big shows, or Las Vegas Open. They would get. Whoa, sorry,
Bless you.
everyone. Yeah. So that's a different Elo table, or you would get bonus points in your.
No, it's a different Elo table.
Okay.
So their matches that they're winning at LVO will count towards their North America Elo rating.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And not their European or Asia Pacific.
So then they would get ranked in that region. So
after 10 games.
After 10, yeah. Understood. So
it'll be pretty hard for that to happen, but not impossible.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? There's some crazy people out there. Maybe we got some people in France or Spain or England who are going to come to 10 events in the US this. I mean, that's one a month. Yeah. That's almost one a month.
It takes about 3 events before you're rated. But not impossible.
Yeah. Huh. That's interesting. Yeah, I like that. So hey, everybody out there in the world, all you competitive players, there's something to try to be number 1 ranked in every region. See if you can make that possible.
I mean, so you could always compare your Elo rating to the other regions, but I'm telling you right now that it doesn't mean anything.
Right. So it's only regional where it matters. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It doesn't matter across. Yep. Which I think it's fine. And I think that makes sense. And I think that's fair for everyone.
I think it'll give a good sense of community too, because you're going to see names that on the table now on your own table. And everyone will be ranked higher within their own region naturally because there's multiple tables.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. I like it, John. You're doing great work.
Thanks. Try. I do have to give credit.
All right.
Jade, don't kill me for this. To Ryan Slawowski.
No,
Slawowski. Is it Slawowski? Am I gonna get in trouble
I'm
for that?
Not. Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, I don't know. But he did. No, he's helped me a lot. Yeah. He's helped me a lot workshop these different ideas. Yeah. With other competitive games, like I know he referenced StarCraft a lot, competitive StarCraft and how they do things. So we've talked a lot about it and what would be best for Legion.
Yeah, I think Ryan is one of those guys that's like you don't realize how much knowledge he has in like games in general until you start like talking to him, and then he's like, I don't know. I just like we did that. For those of you that don't know, we did what did we do? A Star Wars, what's it called? Edge of the Empire campaign that we did with Ryan and Krabik and Brendan Franz. It's on our YouTube channel. You can find it. But like off camera, he'd be like telling us all this stuff about Edge of the Empire. I'm like, what, man? All right. Like, he's a really smart guy, and they're good friends of the podcast. I just tease them a lot because it's fun.
He's very humble about what he knows.
Yeah,
he likes to be loud and fun, but he is still very humble about.
Ryan and Tim and all those guys over at Stabcast, they're great dudes. So good. All right. So that's Elo, and that's kind of how it's changing and where you can.
There is one last change that's not.
There's always one last thing. Look at this.
Well, it doesn't. It's not going to change any rankings. But I'm going to do all 3 of these changes at once. So I don't want you to think that this third thing is changing everything, because it's not. The third thing is just for fun, and I'm going to double everything. So instead of right now, I have it set to you will get a maximum of 32 points in a game. I'm going to double it to 64.
Okay.
That on its own is just going to expand the range from like 750 to 1350 that it is now, it'll expand it to 14 to 1700. So we're going to see bigger numbers.
Okay, that's fun.
Yeah, bigger numbers are more fun. I think getting close to 2000 is kind of like where we want to be.
Yeah.
So pushing current ones up to 1700 is ideal.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love
And
it.
that's all. That's the last change.
Are you sure?
Positive.
Because I'm gonna switch topics. So are you 100% sure?
No, I'm not sure.
All
We'll
right.
find out.
All right. So that's the soon to be worldwide ranking system, that competitive system that we're using. And then
Beginning of the year is where I'm going to make the changes. So January 1.
Okay.
So you'll see
You'll
it
see it on the website
before LVO. This will happen well before LVO.
Okay. Yeah. So speaking of there, I mean, I know there's going to be more, so forgive me, but the ones on my mind, there's 4 large tournaments or large-ish tournaments. Like January's LVO, February is Canto Bite, March is Adepticon, and then April is going to be the Dallas Open. I don't, there's probably other ones in between there, but those are the ones in my head that are going to be bigger events.
May, June, July as
Yeah,
well.
and then right, and then August will probably be Gen Con, and then it's just going to keep going. With that being said, John, I wanted to talk about SOS versus MOV versus your system, which is similar to MOV. So yeah, so basically what we've been playing on since the beginning of Legion is something called Strength of Schedule.
It's trash.
Right. And basically it works out however your opponents do and however you do, that's how everyone else gets ranked in the game. So if, let's say, John and I are playing round 1, John beats me, and then I go on to win the rest of my games during that tournament, and John goes on to win the rest of his games, well, John's going to have a better score than someone who played an opponent round 1 who lost all their games for the rest of the tournament or dropped, for instance. So SOS is highly reliant on your opponents leading up to the end doing well and not dropping in order for you to do well.
Yeah, so Strength of Schedule, it tries to look at the quality of the opponents you had in a tournament, and it's completely legitimate. That's fair. And I think it does a decent job at that too. It does it by taking the average of your opponent's tournament records. So if I played against someone that went one win, 3 losses, he got 25%. He gives me a 20, like he adds a 25% to my SOS. But if I played against someone that went 4-0, that adds 100%. You know, I played against a good player. And it averages those all out to say, oh, well, this is how hard your tournament day was.
Right.
The harder the tournament day was, the better.
So for an example, and this is a good example. So this tournament I went to last month, I just looked, John, we only had 16 players, so you didn't get to put it into your system, but we had 3 players go 3-0, myself, Luke Cook, and Alexander. And I ended up ranking first just because my opponents did better overall than Luke and Alexander's opponents.
Wait, you took first at a tournament?
Yeah, I did.
I'm confused.
With a double ATST.
What? No.
Double do-back, triple saps.
No, this didn't happen.
Yeah.
I don't believe you.
I'm working on getting competitive while Kyle's gone. So for, that was based on, I mean, listen, I did my job and won my games. But really, other than that, it wasn't based on anything I did. It was, or Luke did, or Alexander did. It was all based on what our opponents did leading up to that, and my opponents all did well, it turns out, right? And so I just got ranked higher. Now it was close, but it's still, that's just how it worked. And it's an easy way to do it. And like Tabletop TO and other softwares, that's how they do it, because it's kind of the most simple way to do it, right? Because there isn't ton of there's math involved, but not a ton, right? And you can kind of work it out relatively simple. So then, I think I guess I would say the competitive community pushed when FFG was in charge of Legion, pushed FFG into changing it to an MLV system. So,
I'm gonna take credit for that.
all right, so Bushman pushed
I
them
pushed FFG
into
it.
an MOV.
Plug myself right here.
So MOV stands for margin of victory, and John, why don't you kind of explain how that works for Legion?
Yeah. So like Jay said, the issue with SOS is it's your first tiebreaker. It's your primary tiebreaker. And you have no control over it. It's good at what it does in determining how hard your tournament was, but you have zero control over it. It's completely random. So here we enter MOV. MOV, what it does is it measures how well you played the game. So it will take the average, not the average. It will, for each game, you're going to add up the victory points you won and the victory points your opponent won. And you're going to get the ratio of that will be your MOV. So if on key positions, if I won 2 of the key positions and my opponent scored 1 of them, there were 3 total and I scored 2. So I got a 66% MOV for that. And my opponent got 33%.
Okay.
If I shut my opponent out entirely and keep him from scoring any victory points, I played the game better than he did because it's an objective based game. And I would get 100% victory point or 100% MOV and he'd get 0%. And then your tiebreaker becomes the average of that across each round.
So let's say you and I were playing and we tied in victory points, and then it came down to blue pair tie and then points killed. How does that factor in?
So all it cares about is victory points. If we were tied on victory points, we both get 50%, end of story.
Okay.
That's fine. And yes, and it comes up a lot that people will say, well, what about the points destroyed? How's that factored in? It doesn't matter. The MOV is your ratio of victory points, not the points destroyed is to determine who gets the win for the game, which is much more important than the MOV for the game.
Right. So if we look at stuff, a win is going to trump like an MOV tie.
Absolutely.
Every time. Right. So it won't matter. So if you're thinking like when I first heard of MOV, I was like, well, but what if we tie and I win? Like it doesn't matter. I won. So that trumps it.
But you barely won. So you get 50%. That's the minimum MOV you can get and win.
Right. Whereas, like, for instance, let's use my tournament as an example. I don't know how Luke did in each one of his games, but let's assume Luke crushed all his opponents, right? Like got 4, I don't know, 2 to 4, or let's say 60% or higher of the victory points in every match he had. And let's say I got 60%, and then 50%, right? Like, because we ended up tying and I won on points. Luke would then have taken first place because his MOV would have been higher. And it wasn't based on what his opponents did. It was based on what he did in the games that he had.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And so and I know a lot of people, I think maybe because people don't understand MOV versus SOS, and it really works because you're in control of your own destiny. And you're not like waiting on, your opponents to do well. Like for those of you that are new to Legion or newer and haven't been to a tournament, like the old joke is when you beat somebody, if they're your friend, you're like, okay, now you got to win the rest of your matches. Because I need, you know what I mean? Like we always say that to each other, especially if you're friends with the person. And once MOV is fully in place, it just doesn't matter anymore.
Right. There is another benefit as well. I don't know what all went into FFG deciding to adapt this system. But as I was trying to convince them, I took all the results from Adepticon, the only Adepticon we've had for Legion, and I showed them, hey, look how many ties there are in strength of schedule, because there are a very limited number of outcomes you could have for strength of schedule. I may be forgetting it right now, but I think it's just the square of how many rounds there are. I think so. Like for a 4-round tournament, there are 16 total numbers. And if you've got 50 people, you're bound to have doubles and triples, which means that you're going to have to go to your second tiebreaker. And at Adepticon, there were, I think, at least 6 occasions where players were tied not only at wins, not only at strength of schedule, but also at extended strength of schedule. So the ranking was then decided randomly, which is terrible. It's terrible to be ranked randomly.
So so explain to me how, let me give an example.
Yeah.
Let's say Luke and I, in this same example, Luke and I both won all 3 games. We've got both got 60% of the victory points in all 3 games. Now what?
So then we do have a backup for MOV, and it's extended MOV, similar to extended strength of schedule.
Okay.
And it will look at the MOV of all your opponents. So that one is random. Sorry. But if you tied on MOV on all 3 games, that's pretty phenomenal.
Right. I know it's near impossible, but it still happens, right? So
you
have to have a backup. Yeah.
But the range of numbers is so much larger because the ratios you get from each game are wild. You could get, there are games that have 3 victory points. There are games that have 12 victory points. You throw bounty in there and it bumps it up by 1. You throw secret mission in there, it bumps it up by 1. There's so many different ratios, and then you're averaging those ratios.
So let me ask you this: how does it? So if if we were to calculate it, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we count, if bounty and secret mission are in play,
those are victory points.
We count them in the pool of victory points that were possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so, even though, let me ask you this: even though let's say I don't have R2 or bounty. Okay. I don't have either R2 or Padme. I don't have bounty or secret mission. And there's 6 available points. I can never get 100% in that. So I can
Not
only
true.
get, okay. Why?
So it's not, and I apologize if I said this because I might have, it is not the number of victory points possible.
Mm-hmm.
It is the number of victory points scored. That's the denominator.
Oh, I got you.
So if there were, if you're playing intercept, that's one of the highest scoring, that and breakthrough are some of the highest victory points you can score. But if you're contested on all 3 scoring rounds except for 1, and you score 1 to 0, you don't get 1/12, you get 100%.
I gotcha. Okay. That makes more sense. And I don't know, you may have said it right. I just, in my brain broke once we talked about bounty and secret missions. So I am not the mathematician of this group.
That's all right.
So, but yeah, okay. So that's kind of the explanation of MOV. Now, the funny thing is, they instituted MOV right before the pandemic. And so I don't think we've had a single major tournament that's been an OP tournament, which is organized play, that is has gone off. So we have no idea how it's going to work, because right now, currently, and correct me if I'm wrong, send us an email or a comment. I don't believe there's any software that calculates MOV right now.
There's not.
So if organized play were to happen tomorrow, I have no idea. Like, someone would have to hand calculate that, and that someone's probably you. But someone's going to have to calculate.
Yeah, it's not fun to calculate.
Oh,
but when I was preparing to propose this to FFG a year before the pandemic, I was able to convince Tabletop TO to add my own version of it, because I didn't know what FFG was going to come up with. And it is almost identical in every aspect and it's called battle points. So when you're creating a tournament and you choose Star Wars Legion, if you choose battle points, that's the system that I presented. And it
Now you
does,
said almost identical. What's the
yeah.
almost, pal?
The almost is how it handles things like concessions and tables, and buys are different as well. Buys might be the same. Buys are effectively the same.
Okay.
But it's these corner cases that are handled differently. And I would like, I would like give a player 50% MOV for some things, where FFG would give them the average of their MOV, which is dynamic and constantly changing,
Yeah.
and much weirder to calculate.
Yeah.
But
And maybe why there is no software that's done put it in place yet, right?
yeah, yeah. We've tried. I've tried talking to the tabletop TO. I reached out as soon as FFG released it and just haven't heard anything back.
Yeah. Well, maybe maybe if we say it on a podcast, this will get them going.
Maybe.
Or or somebody can reach out to us. So okay. So that's all great. So now we know, and knowing is half the battle, John. So we did it.
I do have to say one thing, because Kyle's not here and he's
Okay.
gonna get mad if I don't bring it up.
All right.
We talked about the bad to strength of schedule, but there is a downside to MOV as well. There no scoring system's perfect.
Okay.
Well, the perfect scoring system is if you have 16 players, play 4 rounds. Play until there's a single undefeated.
Mhm.
But that's impractical. Legion games take too long.
Yep.
Number of reasons. And players not show, like some players not showing the day of, like it's always going to be a factor. So the downside to MOV is if you get paired against randomly, again, pairing is random. If you get paired against players that are not as good, you are more likely to be able to get a high MOV from them, because you can outplay them on the objectives better. And you could have the same rank as someone else. You could have both gone 3-0, but I got paired against easier opponents, so I have a higher MOV.
Yeah.
That's what it ends up being, which is the opposite of strength of schedule. But still, it's still in your hands.
Yeah.
Getting paired against a better or worse player, like this one is at least still in your hands.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And so, like John said, they all have positives and they all have negatives, but but really getting closer to true numbers of how to calculate, right? The MOV seems like it's getting us closer, where strength of schedule is just a win loss,
Just rolling the dice.
Yeah, and whoever else win loses, and that's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, and I think there's plenty of examples of tournaments where you have multiple 3-0s, or multiple whatever an O, and somebody could have tabled every single person that they had, right? But you could have ranked better because you just had a better strength of schedule. And so it's interesting, and I think that the thing that I'd like to get out of this for the audience is that we need to keep working on it, right? Like John's talking about changing the Elo system and how he's going to rank people to make it better. Like we went from strength of schedule to MOV. Like there may be a better system that I don't know. Some crazy mathematician works out, right? Like
there is a better system,
right? So another shameless plug for Bushfacts.
I haven't proposed it anywhere yet.
But there's always better, and I think if we keep growing and we keep building it and we keep proposing these new better solutions, that this community is only going to get better. And I mean, because there's nothing worse than like I can give an example from my past Bushman. Actually, this was you and I, because you were at the first LVO?
Yeah,
right. You and I had the same schedule.
Pull it up right now.
Yeah, I think you and I had the same exact schedule. or wins and losses, and I think you were ranked one higher than me, and you got into the
No, I did not get into it.
or whoever was one ahead of you. Maybe I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember.
So I was ranked 14th. You were 15th,
Yeah,
and it was top 12.
yeah,
So me and Jay, but the one of the top 12 dropped. So then the 13th made it in.
that's what it
And
was.
me and
Yeah.
Jay were the first two that didn't make it in because of strength of schedule.
Yep.
My roommate loves this because he was my one and only loss, and he went 1 and 3 losses
Yeah,
after he beat me.
Yeah.
So he single-handedly tanked my strength of schedule.
Right. Where so for me, I lost to Nima, who ended up going into the top 12. I think he ended up going second into the top 12 or something.
You also
like
played
that.
against my roommate, so he tanked both of our
He takes both of us.
SOSs.
That mother.
I didn't realize that. It's great.
Oh man, I remember him.
He was
I
your third
remember
round.
him. Yep.
Yeah.
And then Nathan was, and then I
You're
beat
fourth.
Nathan in the fourth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, oh man, yeah. So, but like that's a perfect example where we were both 3-1, and I had played like one of the top. My only loss was to one of the top players, and so it just made no sense, right? Because if I remember correctly, like number 12 didn't really have any significant, like it just didn't make any sense. Like I think 12 was 2-1 as well. Like there's a lot of 2-1s actually that made it,
Three
or
ones.
three ones that made it in, right? And so it was kind of just like a random roll of the dice, because I believe your roommate and the guy Nathan, your roommate, and the other guy that I beat, I like significantly beat them, and it was like,
But it doesn't show.
but it doesn't show, and it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. And so that's kind of where I'm giving this as an example, not to like, I know people get irritated with me when I bring up real world examples, but I'm trying to give examples of things I've lived so that you guys can understand why these things change and why we need to adapt and find new ways of figuring out who won and who lost, besides just who won and who lost. So
Right.
as much as I hate it, everything's down to math. And
Math is great.
Oh God, I hate math.
Math is objective.
Yeah, well, I'm an
Keeps
artist.
you warm at night. Doesn't abandon you.
Yeah. Oh, you know what, John? I wanted to ask you. Since we got you,
Yeah.
I think it was last week we talked about the tournament that you were at, that I believe you placed second.
I did.
And I wanted
Thanks
to
to MOV.
Yeah, and I want to hear more about your list. Tell everybody what your list was.
Oh no, my list was trash. You definitely don't want to take my list.
Tell us your list.
I really liked the list. Shout out to Eric Reynolds, a local that told me about this list days before the tournament, and I hard swapped to it. It wasn't too far off from my original list. I'm not original for that tournament, but since the game came out, I was a real big fan of Flyboys, Han and Luke.
Me too. Yep.
It's what I took to that LVO back in 2019. But Han got some significant upgrades between low profile and steady. Steady on Han means that if you have red saves and you're within range 4, I'm going to remove 4 of your models. That's it. I can move twice to get to within range 2 and then shoot at 2 different units and remove 4 models.
Yeah.
He will pay for himself in 2 rounds. And if you think you're going to tie Han up in melee, you've got the biggest, baddest Luke to contend with, and that's not going to happen.
Yep.
And so I take Han with duck and cover and environmental gear to make sure he can run straight to wherever he's needing to run. Duck and cover because low profile now is legit.
Yep, it really is.
In heavy cover, he's stopping 3 hits before he even has to roll. Granted, light cover against snipers means that I have 0 cover, and take full hits,
Yep.
which is it's whatever. Those are snipers. They're plinking away at the 6 health.
Yep.
So I took Luke, Han, and Chewie, and then I had 3 snipers. I had 2 DLT 20As and a 5-man vet and a Mark II. Now I kept trying to set up fire supports for the Mark II, and they never hit hard.
Yeah.
And maybe I was just doing it wrong, but the 3 snipers did tons of work against Imperial and Republic. Now they can manage the sniper war now because of low profile again.
Yep.
Snipers don't kill snipers.
Right, and the ARC trooper is getting a downgrade. That helps. Yeah.
You have to have crits to kill these snipers.
Yep.
If you have a small dice pool, which ARCs can't get as easily now because they lost critical 1.
Yep.
So those snipers would remove at least 1 model each, which is costly for these expensive Imperial and Republic lists. And that's every round, so 18 models is no small number. And then Chewie would help withstand that first initial volley where my opponent would try and wipe a squad or 2. Chewie would just guardian it all.
Mm-hmm.
He would die within the first 3 rounds. That's fine. Because I still have a full force. And by 3 rounds, Han is removing his 12th models.
Yep.
And Luke I can't words. Luke is definitely in melee.
Yeah. I love it. I love it so much.
And you don't have enough to kill the rest of my squads anymore.
I like it.
It is great. I'm looking to put Lando in instead of Chewie. Chewie served a good role.
Yep.
Lando looks juicy.
Yeah. So I've been playing around with an idea, which I'm considering going tournament running with it, and I'm calling it the Hoth B team. Okay, so it's Airspeeder with Wedge and Power Harpoon, another Airspeeder with a Power Harpoon because they're free, 2 vets with their 93 upgrade, 2 of the medium blaster troopers, right? 2 tauntauns, a laser cannon, and R2D2.
Okay.
I know.
Okay.
I'm still trying to work it out. Because
2 Airspeeders hits hard.
Yeah. So here's my thoughts, right? Because I think we're in this place where you got to have an all comers list. So you got to be prepared for so many different things, right?
There's a lot of good lists out there.
Yeah. And so I think the Airspeeders take care of most things, right? They take care of armor and snipers and anything that's hiding behind, the vets and the guns there, the Mark IIs, they're a good gun line that kind of hold up for anybody running up on you, right? Mm-hmm. The laser cannon is a great piece to have in the back with the impact 2 and 5 hits, search to hit, to kind of keep back and hold your side of the table. Then you have the taunts for any melee stuff that you have going on, and then R2 to either pull some wounds off of the Airspeeders or to try to score an extra point.
Okay. I'm pulling this up to look at it. That's not bad.
$7.99. I don't think it cares about red or blue player.
Wow, there are no upgrades.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, R2, the taunts, the laser cannon are all naked. Yeah, and the vets just have their heavy weapon.
No taunt upgrades either.
Nope.
No tenacity, sad.
Nope. No HQ uplink. Not like our typical, not the typical taunt run. But I think what you would do is nowadays, the way the meta is today, where before with taunts, you would run them right into the enemy lines, right? And you would just mix it up immediately. I think you hold them back and you wait until they're trying to move their Wookiees up, or Luke or whoever, is trying to come up and mess in your biz. And then you run the taunts up and, you can shoot. They've got that great two red search to hit, sharpshooter 1. relentless shot that they could do.
Right.
So I think they're more of a backfield player now, where you're just holding them to kind of protect your lines.
Interesting. Interesting. I wonder if this would struggle at all with completing objectives,
Maybe.
because you really have four units that will do objectives. Your
And-
2 vets and your 2
Yeah.
blaster troopers.
Yep.
But they also have great guns, so you want them shooting.
Right. So I wonder, I was thinking about that too. And I think the game is almost like you have the airspeeders kind of cleaning up anything that's trying to go for those same objectives. And then you're just
Yeah.
kind of waiting out your opponent, right? And you're saying, yeah, I don't know, go for the objective, see what happens to you. And then you just kind of clean up after that and take what you want.
Right. Okay. Okay.
I don't know. It's just a thought. I'm still theory crafting it, but I gotta get on the table. I know double heavy is a good list. I know double airspeeder is a good list. I'm just trying to like figure out the rest. Do you know what I mean? That to kind of
Right.
be surprising, because I think element of surprise is huge. To be surprising, but also kind of cover your butt. With all the stuff out there now.
Right. Okay. Okay. I dig it.
It's just a thought.
Yeah, I don't know how to play tauntauns, so I don't know how I would do with this.
Yeah, I think there's an old way. I think you would play them. So, because I was thinking a lot about this, and I think that I played a double dues, double ATST recently, and basically with the dewbacks, I didn't really rush them into anything unless they needed to be rushed in, right? I kind of held them back to hold the flanks. And so I was kind of thinking about that with Tons. It's like they don't have to do what they used to do. They don't have to run in and like get behind the enemy lines. They could just hold the flanks and kind of wait for the eventual Wookiee, Vader, or whatever to come running down.
Right. Okay. Okay.
They
Not
can't they can't be force pushed. They can
They could be force pushed.
not too bad though, not like in a way that it would really like hurt like it does with
I'll force push them right out into the open. Right into
well,
my
your
waiting
stuff will
fire
already
support.
be dead by my by the
Oh,
the
no, that's true. Double airspeeder does scare
Yeah.
me.
yeah.
My list does not have an answer to double airspeeder. I have a saber. I have a lightsaber that I'll throw at you and
Yeah.
hopefully take out 3 wounds each time.
Right. What's the best thing to do when everyone's doing melee? Have something that can't be attacked by melee. Just like, no. I'm just gonna fly past you. I'm gonna kill all your guys in the back, and then you can deal with the rest of my army.
I need fire supported lightsaber throw against airspeeders.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's the
that's-
other thing you could do too,
yeah.
right? Like I was thinking with this list, so the airspeeders don't have linked targeting array. So you're giving your orders, let's say you have like your Mark IIs, and now you could maybe fire support airspeeders. You could fire support the laser cannon. So now, you know what I mean? You could potentially be throwing like 9 to 10 dice at something,
Fire support that harpoon shot.
Yeah,
Make it actually do something.
right.
Then you'll actually hit and turn something around.
Right. I mean, with all these vehicles running around, let's
Yeah.
get those guys turned around to their weak point so we can,
Yeah. You should be able to drag someone with a harpoon.
Oh,
That'd
that
be
would
fun.
be so cool. Yeah. God, I remember when early on in the game, when it was just and somebody tow cabled the ATST and just spun it around and shot the back. Oh my God, that was the worst. That was the worst back then.
I didn't know that even happened back then.
Oh God, yeah.
It's impressive.
Well, it wouldn't ever be in like competitive play because the T-47 wasn't
Right.
good at all. But
Right.
I want to say though, I was ahead of the curve. PAX Unplugged 2 or 3 years ago, I brought a Han double airspeeder list.
Oh, geez.
It was not good.
I don't know if it counts as being ahead of the curve if you played it when it was bad.
That's exactly. I played it before it was cool, John.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll allow it.
But yeah, so I guess we can wrap up here. So what I would say is to you, the audience, if you haven't had a chance, I would sign up for, let's start signing up for events. Let's get to some events. You got LVO coming up in January. You got that Cano Bike coming up in February. That's up here in New York. I'll be there. John's coming up. We're gonna have some fun up here in upstate New York in the middle of February, which is ridiculous.
Is it cold? How cold is it?
-20, -30.
You're joking.
I'm not.
I'm gonna die.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to recommend something. This happens all the time. I've worked for a number of companies that people have come to New York in the middle of winter. I highly recommend bringing a jacket and gloves and a
Oh,
hat.
weird.
Like, go
Weird.
buy them. I know you live in Arizona, but like literally go buy them. If you don't have them and wear them, you will need them. It's going to be cold. It's going to be real cold. And then March is Adepticon out in Chicago. We're going to be there. We're going to have a booth at Adepticon this year. I don't know what else is going on, to be determined, but we definitely have a booth. And then April, at the end of April, is the Dallas Open. So we might be there too, to be determined. But you know, a lot of events coming up, a lot of chances to get ranked on the Elo. So get out there or get 19 of your other friends and and put on a
I
tournament.
do not encourage that, but I mean, sure.
As long as your friends are ranked in the top 25.
If you have 19 friends, then I'm impressed.
Yeah.
I have like 4.
Yeah, and get them all, make sure, you know, like get Kyle there, get Luke Cook there.
Oh man, what are you doing to me, Jay?
I don't know. But yeah, so all right, I think we can wrap up. I think that was a good podcast. I
Yeah.
guess you, the listeners, will determine whether or not that was a good podcast. But
See how many listeners we lose between this and the next episode.
no Kyle, no third scoundrel, and Jay and John just talk numbers all day.
Yeah, it's great.
All right, well, John, thanks for joining me. This was good.
Yeah.
I had fun. We'll see you guys next week, and then I guess I gotta do Kyle's line, stay fresh cheese bags.
See you guys.